Good morning, everyone. We'll get started with a little bit of Kate Bush, right? Some Stranger Things fans out there. So we got some different topics today we're going to discuss. So a couple things in the update section. So if you could first imagine how your human governments have powers and principles and people, essentially, right? You have the heads of energy, the heads of people, heads of health, heads of foreign nations, like things like that. Well, so upstairs, right, I also counsel with other gods, and these gods were removed from managing people, but a lot of them, it wasn't necessarily that they transgressed against the human, but it was, too many cooks in the kitchen. So I think you can relate to that, right? If you've ever had a job where you've had like more managers and supervisors and people of, positions of leadership or authority, more than it's needed, right? Then it gets kind of bureaucratic and there's red tape, and then you got struggles of people want to do it this way and people want to do it that way. Well, the final word, right, falls on me and falls under the house of Yahweh. So me, and then we, right? So not only are we like the largest, but we're the oldest, like the oldest, the original. So that's what I mean, right? By all other secondary gods, like they're all supervisors and manager level. Like there's only one CEO, owner, sole proprietor, right? And that belongs to like me and the upstairs me, right? So anyway, but right, out of good intent, right, and good faith, we still have these other deities not employed with money, like they don't collect paychecks, but they do sit upon a council, and a lot of times, they'll share experiences, or they'll even share, when we say like running the numbers, right? Running the numbers for us is, if we do this, show me what that looks like in 9 weeks. Show me what that looks like in 40 weeks. And then we can get kind of a preview of people, places, and things. If we make one adjustment, how that unfurls. And the same thing goes if we go backward and we say, okay, I need this particular writing to be unearthed at this time. Well, it's not a big lift to drive humankind to finding these discoveries when I'm ready or when we're ready. But just like in human government, you guys have, like imagine Congress, you need kind of this many votes to do this and stuff like that. So there's a long list of things, right? When I go upstairs and I'm like, okay, I've got notebooks full of, things I witnessed, things I'm going to change, some that benefit directly the house of Yahweh, other things that don't necessarily, directly benefit, but also to show kindness, right? Because also I treat the others upstairs like thy neighbor, because they are my neighbors. And the greater good for not only us in the realms, but what's also going to be good for mankind below. And unfortunately, right, the human experience has been soured, right, pretty bad. A lot of people, few people get to share in an experience, of greatness, of ease, comfort, adventure, like all the good parts of life, right? It seems like only the top 25% really get to experience. Most of those that fall below that, they're stuck in microcosms of scraping for enough food, right? Trying to keep that roof over their head. So their main focuses are, job, living paycheck to paycheck. And hey, I understand, right? Because I'm purposely in the bottom 70% of society, right? On purpose. Why would I, if I'm looking to build a house, I'm going to go where there's empty land where I could build a house. Just like if I'm on Earth trying to remedy situations for the human race, well, in order to be able to correct these things, to make sure that the next experience isn't going to have these pitfalls. So I have to go where, if we're going back with the pest control thing, right? If I'm an exterminator, well, I have to go where the bugs are. And so the same thing when it comes to remedying sin, right? And then remedying, again, a lot of the major flaws. And again, if we were to go back in time, like way back in time, 5,500 years plus back in time, a lot of times it was up to the council, right? The council of the gods. And then there's nothing more than the chief of the council, me, right? Being able to delegate things out and then hope it's good. So I say that for several reasons. One, there was a lot of things I wanted to get past, but I wanted to collect kind of more intel before I was to present everything to the council. And again, I want to just reiterate, it's not like if anyone said no, that it stops me from doing anything. But taking wise counsel is important because I'm always up for seeing something from a different view. And I seek that because I want to find the good in something or anything. And then I want to see if I can address all of the unrighteousness or all the wicked or all the evil associated with one thing. And then how can that be achieved, right? So that's where one of my big goals are. But also, I want this time, if we go back to the flea, right? If you're a flea in this time, right, you're against me, you're against whatever, right? But if you're coming against the house of Yah, you're coming against me. And again, if you're not on that truth train, then you're looked at by me and now the council as a flea. So it's kind of like being tagged from on high, right? And so that time clock is kind of like a stopwatch, right? It just got assigned to those that when we run the numbers and I say, okay, in this span of time, this person is still going to refuse me, still going to refuse truth. And then by extending their campaign on Earth, it begins to hurt my numbers. So that's when we start taking those people out of the way, and then we let those numbers start to fall in line, and they'll start cascading. Because at the ultimate end of the day, if I looked at it just strictly business, like not even looking at the emotional or human element, I'm in the energy business, and I'm also in the creation business. But creation requires a lot of energy and a lot of static creation, right? What's around you, the soils, the air, all the contemporary elements, that is all gathered from elements in the cosmos, right? So the cosmos are like one really big garden for me. Can reach into a sun, pull out elements, can reach into this sphere, pull out elements, combine them, and then essentially start growing another Earth. Well, the problem comes when we're talking about the hosts that will be inhabiting the land, because we want to obviously make sure that the hosts are going to be happy, right? The hosts of Earth, the stewards of Earth, those that are going to be on the Earth to care for it and to work amongst each other. And at the same time, for every generation, right, there are going to be some individuals that have kind of been, tapped or spoken to. But in the past, having that second or third hand communication it doesn't work. So that's why I don't ever want mankind abandoned again. I don't want mankind to ever fall into the absence of God, the one true, the true God. But I forgot where I was going with this. See, I got distracted. Anyway. So the good part about this was pretty much got everything we needed to pass, right? Passed. So everyone's Gucci on the left, everyone's Gucci on the right, everyone's falling fold into the center, which is wonderful because then that gives me options. So it's kind of like walking away from that meeting with all wins, all votes we needed. And so now it's like a big weight off my shoulders, which puts me in a much better mood. But also it extends to be more beneficial for you guys. All right, what else was topic of the day? Oh yeah. So any asteroids that are inbound, any attempts to try to thwart that, right, using nuclear warheads or using any type of space vehicles is highly, highly looked down upon. Do not do that. If you were to try to do something like that, you could in essence start something that the Earth is not prepared to finish. So we need to let us work the way we need to work without mankind getting in the way. If I had my way, I would like to go all the righteous people in this location for 1,000 miles, 7 days to get out of there. The unrighteous wouldn't leave anyway. They'd be mockers, scorners, blasphemers. They'd be so busy with their own hands they wouldn't even realize it. So it's like eyes to see, ears to hear. Leave this area. After 7 days, we're gonna blow it, and then everything in that 1,000 miles will be absolutely devastated, destroyed, nothing standing. Right? So things like big eruptions, right? Bigger than modern man has ever witnessed. Like Mount St. Helens would have been the dust flown up from sweeping the floor compared to, 18 tons of dirt being dumped. Like, that's the comparison. Huge. But, right, then those people would need to then migrate, and then essentially after every area is cleared, you say, we just for numbers, say you're starting in an area with 100,000, and then maybe only 2,000 hear the call, they leave that area, and then the, say 10,000 left, right? 10,000 righteous came out, they left, the other 90,000 stayed, and then it blows, and bam. So now they're all gone, and then most of them, right, that were unconnected, unrighteous, whatever, but they weren't necessarily a spirit or a demonic spirit that, just inhabits another body. We would just take those energies, right, those souls, collect them, and then repurpose them for a later time. So by doing that, not only do we, up the strength from on high, but this is also what praise and worship and all these things also bring, is when you are speaking truth and you're lining up with my will for you, right? My Father's will from on high for you through us, the Ruach, you're supplanting that raw energy for a higher form of energy, right? You're using your energy in the form of speech, in the form of thought, in the form of lamenting, in the form of making heartfelt connection, in the form of connecting within your mind, reading the word through the eyes of being, not only saved, not only comforted, but being assisted by the angels, by the Ruach, by the Spirit of Truth. So that's where, that's going to elevate your human experience. And so very much kind of like this. So if we're talking the heavens and earth and the players, but it was kind of like a neighborhood setup, right? And in the neighborhood, you have one house that they're going down the wrong path, so it's constant, all the bad things, right? There's abuse, right? There's, violence, there's, like all the bad things that could ever happen in a house, right? It's just terrible, miserable. Well, that would be one house that we're going to have to, the Elohim police, right? We're going to either get that house cleaned up and in check, or we're going to have to evict the residents out of our neighborhood, right? To make way for a righteous family that's going to come in, do well by the house, the property, and kind of like the HOA, right? So 10 commandments are kind of like your HOA. You want to live in the nice area, you're going to have to obey the HOA. And the Elohim, right? Yahweh, YAHWH, YAHUWAH. Well, that's going to be the process, right? Earth is the neighborhood. The 10 commandments are the HOA. And, say I'm like the chief builder of the neighborhood / HOA CEO, right? And like all that. Well, each time we're able to evict one and then replace it, right, with a better family, it's gonna have the rewards of, well, we have a family that's gonna want to beautify the property. It's kind of have a family that wants to elevate their relationships within their family, themselves, but then their community. So remember, we're taking out the bad and putting back in the good, or making room for people, that are going to get on board. So, where else are we here? So anyway, that's kind of, what I want to talk to you guys about, but I've kind of lost my initial thoughts. Let's see here. Alright, I'm going to take a quick 5, and then hopefully I'll remember one of my points. I'm looking for my little note, but I don't even know where I put my note. Be back in a few minutes. Sorry. Alright, and we're back. Sorry about that. So, one of the benefits, right, of having counsel, but also I can kind of see the back end. So I'll use like a computer for example. So if you have a firewall, right, the firewall prevents you from gaining access to something. So when dealing with things like the Roman Catholic Church, for example, I don't need to even like search hearts or minds in there, because in the spirit side of things, if you could see this metastasized, basically like a dark force, like evil forces that are working on behalf of concealment and restraining power from the people. And I don't necessarily put that on the current Pope's shoulders, because the Pope is nothing but a fall guy, and like, for example, I don't look at everybody in the Roman Catholic Church as they're just evil and they're the devil. No, but inadvertently they are working for my adversary, which kind of pisses me off. But besides that, like, let's say there's a handsome young, bishop in Australia, Mari Emmanuel, right? I stopped listening to Mara because he couldn't get on the truth train, but I do know his heart is solid, and I get that. And I also know, like, he is 100% well-intentioned, but at the same time, even, Mari, right, if he doesn't get on the truth train, right, he'll be the less in the kingdom. Like, and I wouldn't want that for someone who not only has high aspirations for that, but, it's just simply understanding that in which is being taught. I'm going off track, I digress. The point is, so I wouldn't look at, that bishop as the same as like the Pope, because Bishop Mari, right? He's well intent, and even him, like, he kicks back against the church quite a bit. But like the Pope, for example, and all those that preceded him, when they get into that position, they are then privy to a lot of those dark secrets, right? Like the Jesuit order, those types of things are big no-nos, right? They're using influence of other gods. They're using the influence of, dark forces to put a veil between me and them. Like, they're actively preventing me from being able to get in there. So you have to ask yourself, as a church, why are they trying to prevent God from getting into the church, right? Because they know they're idolatrous. They know that religion has no association with the one true God. They know it has everything to do with their idol that they propel and that they use for world power. So again, even half-truth is a lie. And that's what I mean, right? And the worship of the Virgin, Mary, like, that's no, we don't do that. You can thank Saint Mary, right? But let's not worship, let's not step into that. Anyway, council, right? They are also agreed to kind of dismantle whatever dark forces and whatever strongholds that still remain in the Vatican. Because my future plans for the Vatican is nothing more than a museum, like, to be honest. And honestly, a lot of the architecture, like, I feel like in one way you could look at it and it's beautiful, but in the other way it looks kind of like the tee up for a villain in a Disney movie. Like, some of that stuff is kind of creepy. And especially when you increase, like, the idols, like, if you just could see it for what it is, people kissing pictures and cisterns and, like, all these weird things, like, it is just gross. Like, it's gross. It's gross spiritual negligence is what it really is. And that's a part of my initiative of being here, right? Is I'm trying to clear all that crap away. Like, the whole point of the sacrifice was to remove that, so, right, if we look at 2,000 years ago, right, and Peter says, not Saint Peter, but Peter in what you call the Jesus Testament, he's like, I'm gonna go build your church. No, like, get behind me, Satan, really? Because that's the whole reason everyone gets in these messes, is like, they want to, they, like, think it's up to them to take something and then go and they never do it the way I want it. They never do it, truly for truth. They do it from their own understanding, which is usually false, and then it ends up branching off to other things, right? It'd be like if I said, use only Duracell batteries, and then I leave, only to come back 50 years later and everyone's using, the Rayovac batteries. And I'm like, well, why the hell are we using Rayovac? Did Duracell go out of business? I don't think so. And they're like, well, no, like, this is just what we ended up with. So-and-so did this, so we did that. And it's like no one can just stick with what I say, right? Everyone has to make their opinion, their assumption, and, like, all these things. And that's what I mean. Like, people speak about me as I'm like an object, or I'm like removed from this situation. But anyway, so moving forward, here very shortly, I should be able to then see through that Roman Catholic veil, which will be really interesting, because I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of museum artifacts we'll be able to get out of there. So that's one. And then only second to that, right, are your American Christian churches. You guys reject your own religion, you reject your own deity, and instead you embrace literally your imagination and what feels good. So you guys are in love with something that never existed or could never exist. You want a level of perfection because that's what your bedtime stories tell you. You don't even understand what the true blue gods that actually exist, that are ancient in time, eternal in existence, like, you don't understand these things. You guys are like, you know, unreusable. You know, it's like, you guys are like Solo cups, right? You fill it up once, then you throw it in the big trash can. And, you know, me and other Elohim, you know, we're more like that glass. You know, we just keep filling it up. All right. On other news from the realms, we have Betelgeuse, which promises to be a very nice show, because that is actually going to lend itself to adding to our power queue. So the power queue gets depleted by trying to either reduce the impact of peril, right, through storms, wind, hail, water, floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, but also goes on deeper levels of subtle energy. So a lot of these things, I know, like Kabbalists, which I don't necessarily have like any deep-seated animosity towards Kabbalism, but I feel like in so many ways they deduce it to almost like, if you do this and you do that, like, you can do this. Like, remember, when we're talking about existence, purpose, and being, human beings are like, you know, and the ones that are connected, right? The ones that can kind of do manifesting and do astral projection. I've said this before, you guys are more like AA batteries. Like, your AA battery is not enough to do much, right? Other than change a remote and maybe run a toy car. Versus, I am not one, but I am all in the universe. So if I need to borrow energy, I can borrow suns. If I need more energy, I can take the power out of a sun billions of miles away and apply it directly into your sphere. So I have unlimited energy. One of my biggest things is I have to throttle that energy down. So if that energy, you know, we're talking in the quintillions, and then I make that funnel, right, to bring it into essentially the earth, I have to choke that down, right? So we can't go with a quintillion pounds of energy and then just drop it into the earth's sphere. It would just destroy the earth instantly. We don't want that. You know, we don't want to completely decimate the garden. You know, we'd like to do this in a more tactful way, because think about it, if you were a landowner, right? Imagine you had 300 acres, but 100 acres is where it stops on each one. So I don't want to completely just piss off and piss on 100 acres, you know, out of fury or wrath, but I want to have all 300 of my acres to be able to use, you know, for whatever purposes now or in the future. So anyway, so being able to, you know, have that supernova, that should be able to be witnessed, I think, in the sky. But then the quasar, right? So a lot of people may have heard that in science class, but so that's essentially creating a bend in time and space. So very much like it's so far away from a human to say, I got to get up and walk, right, down the road. Let's say the post office is a mile down the road. So in a human way, you would only, let's say right now with your technology or with whatever you're at in your time domain, you could only walk to the post office. Well, in my power, I can actually eliminate the floor between the post office and me. So essentially, I'm not moving anything, and I'm not moving anything closer, but I'm eliminating all that's in between. And really, it's counterweights. So if I'm about to use this much power in Earth, I need to have an equal amount of power that I'm going to be using from upstairs. And then it's like having that counter axis where I'm using this much and I'm weighing it down. Well, I'm going to have to pull an equal amount to keep that steady. Because if I go to pull too hard on this and then it unstables this, it could actually flip, divert, and create a vortex that would not be good. And believe it or not, I know you guys don't even treat it like this, but your atmosphere is really particular, and it could get fried really quick. But outside of that, I get kind of annoyed when I see these articles like asteroid something something could strike in the year 2032. Guys, I could have that asteroid strike on Monday if I wanted to. Like, you guys are on the Earth, so it's a little hard for you to see. But if you could, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get a little model to show you. Okay. So. So let's say, right, this is your Earth. I mean, it kind of is, but so like, let's say that we're going to be using these elements. So if we have, oops, let's not do that. So if we have this, right, these are all in rotations. So it's kind of hard to do keeping in the camera view, but let's say these are all in rotation. And they kind of all go around on like a plate. Well, when you're talking about asteroids and stuff, there's a barrier that it'll bring them around, and then they'll usually go out. So all it takes to bring asteroids or any comets or anything into your atmosphere is changing the inertia. So if the asteroid's using, X amount of light speed or X amount of light years per hour, right? And then it's caught in an orbit, which will eventually slingshot it outwards. If I change the frequency, if I change the inertia, either slow it down or speed it up, then it's actually going to miss its round out point. And then it's really a matter of what part of the Earth, right, are we actually looking at? So that's one, right? And then another, would essentially be, putting up in place something like a sackcloth right over the sun, and then it would actually black it out. But we start to get really big problems when that happens. But it is something that we will have to do at some point. So, just a few updates that I have for you this morning. But like I say, on a good note, we have those that are hitting some milestones, right, in truth and in spirit. Then we have those that have already received a spirit, so I'm also trying to give them some information. That's kind of what this, I think, mainly is, we have some that are still on the very bottom, right? They're bottom feeders. They're not going to be elevating to the new earth state. They're literally in primordial level thinking, mainly because they're so sinned up, right? They're told they're with fleas, but they're assimilating, right? One like. So, hopefully we'll see some changes out of those churches. I doubt it. Like, I really do at this point. They'll be screaming the name Jesus until they literally die. And I think in their mind, they truly believe that if they do, that they're achieving something great, or that they're doing something for their deity, when that deity doesn't exist. Like, no one by that name exists. And, if he did exist, I would know about him, right? Because then he would at least be in the council at some point, or he'd be in the realms at somewhere. But if that exists, it's not in heaven, it's not in the realms. So I don't know. Like I said, that's up to humanity. You guys do as you will anyway, and no one listens to me anyway. So it really is up to you guys. Yeah, so other than that, I think we're good. Santorini, right, we're still working with that. Snowstorms looking good. California, hope you guys are cooling off now really nicely. Yeah, I don't know, but we'll continue, planes, trains, and cars. We'll continue to see what unfurls, but I definitely put a blessing on all those that are in the True Name Covenant. put a hedge of protection on you. Ask of me or my angels anything, and we shall help you, right, if we can, unless it goes against one of the commandments or, you know, the purpose that was given. Yeah, so other than that, I hope everybody has a great day, and happy commercialized Valentine's Day. I don't like it, but I'll probably end up taking the, you know, wife consort out for some type of dinner tonight. I don't know. We'll see, guys. All right. Well, have a good Friday, and maybe we'll catch you later for a Bible teaching. I'm looking forward to seeing how your responses are on Deuteronomy. So, all right.